are listening to episode 67 of the Game Deflators Podcast. My name's John, and I'm joined by Ryan.
Hey, everybody. Here at the Game Deflators Podcast, this week we like to talk about board games we've recently picked up, tabletop games we're currently playing, and everything we love about deflation.
deflation. You know, actually, it's not too far off from our standard intro of games we've recently picked up and games we're currently playing.
Exactly. That's what I was going for there, John. The people will get it.
People will get it. All right, so recent pickups. We can actually do this for once on a non-video game basis.
What'd you get in the non-video game realm recently, John?
So in the non-video game realm, I actually picked up the source book of Eberron, Rising from the Last War. So haven't read it yet, but it's one of those, D&D books that they come out with every quarter pretty much. And I need to read through it. So I got to check that out. Also picked up, what was the other game? House of Daggers, which is one of those like make your own adventure type games.
You wrote House of Danger.
Is it House of Danger? Well, it's House of Danger or House of Daggers. One of the two. I can't remember. Regardless, it is a make your own adventure. I've played these in the past. We actually did one. My wife and, Joel came over and his girlfriend, and we played one of those. I forget which one is like a space one. And you pretty much can play one player or like anywhere up to like 12 players. And you just have different cards that you read, and the players, in the overall table get to decide where you go as a choose your own adventure.
Cool.
So that's pretty cool. Kind of tabletop. I also picked up Codenames and Unstable Unicorns Not Safe for Work edition. And I have plans to pick up the Critical Role team is actually going to be releasing a source book for D&D. I forget the name of it, but it pretty much makes their whole world canon in 5e. So that's going to be pretty sick.
It's not the Tal'Dorei campaign guide. That's the one they already came out with.
No, it's like a legit, like with Wizards.
Yeah.
They're releasing like a canon story to expand that world and put it into D&D.
Yeah. I saw a bunch of that stuff on the
I think it
D&D Beyond YouTube channel recently.
Yeah, I think it comes out in April, if I'm correct. They have pre-orders open now. I'm really hoping that they have a special edition cover, but I haven't seen anything of that nature yet. So if there is a special edition cover, I'll likely get that. If not, I'll just pre-order a standard book on Amazon.
Yeah, Codenames is a game we really should play. I've really been wanting to play Codenames for a while. The folks over at MCDM, they stream Codenames every so often, and it looks like a ton of fun. Like it's a game that'd be right up my alley.
Yeah, it's actually pretty cool. We played it with a group of probably 8 to 10 people at one point, and it was just like a lot of yelling and a lot of trying to figure out like what different pieces were or different words, that were obviously coded. And yeah, I had a lot of fun with it, and I just got that recently picked up for me. My wife got as a gift, and it's pretty cool. So
we'll have to bust it out.
Yeah, we do have to bust that one out. Unstable Unicorns was a lot of fun as well. Some crazy, like with the Not Safe for Work edition, you have stuff like Unicorn of a Dildo. Or no, it's a horse of a dildo. So it's like a dildo popped on its head. Yeah, stuff like there's like a prostitute unicorn and just crazy like, boosts and power-ups for your stable of unicorns and backstabbing. And it's really cool. Yeah, it's actually a fun game. So I enjoyed that one as well. Have you picked up anything in the realm of non-video games?
No, I have not gotten any new tabletop books or any new tabletop games in quite a while.
You haven't picked up anything for your campaigns or anything of that nature?
Nope.
Wow. I'm
I
so
got
disappointed.
actually for Christmas I got those potion bottles with dice. You got them too.
Oh yeah. Joel got us those.
Yeah,
those are
it's
actually
really cool. They're little bottles, and he just filled them with red resin and then put however many D4s for different level potions. It was pretty cool. It was a fun Christmas present.
Yeah, that was actually really interesting. And
people, homemade presents are often appreciated and work really well to enhance your tabletop gaming experience.
Yeah, you can actually shake these bottles and dump them on the table, and that's your potion. It's actually pretty cool. So, all right, let's get into a little bit on our background in D&D. So we haven't done something
tabletop.
like this. Okay, tabletop gaming, which will lead into D&D.
And then we'll lead into D&D.
We clearly haven't done this before, so this is all new for us. So Ryan, I'll let you kind of lead on that one. Your background in tabletop gaming?
So I never really played very many elaborate board games and tabletop games and stuff when I was growing up. I always remember really wanting to get, what was that? Mousetrap? With all like the bits and bobs and pieces that like go down and you try to catch the mouse.
I remember that.
I always thought that looked like a ton of fun.
And the little cage and everything that drops down. Yeah.
But I never really, I was an only child, so I never really had like a lot of board games like around. Like I had like Candyland and Monopoly and that kind of stuff, but that's not really what we're here for. I think the earliest kind of tabletop stuff I got into was Warhammer 40K. I had a group of friends that were really interested in that in like junior high and high school. And so we started buying minis and painting them and building up armies and, you know, getting codexes and rule books. And it was just such a crunchy big game.
And expensive.
And I don't think we ever really played it the right way, but we had a ton of fun. And I had, anybody who doesn't know, I'm an art major. So I mostly love just putting together the minis and painting them and, you know, designing my color schemes and all that kind of stuff. So that was always my favorite part.
Warhammer's a straight out crazy investment. I remember guys that would come into the game shop that I was in, and they would talk about how they had like 20K invested in Warhammer. It's unbelievable. I mean, I can't really say much because of the games I have, but these guys were just straight out with the paint and all the accessories and all the like.
There's some crazy painters. Like I never got into like all of like the really extreme kind of end of stuff. That's an area that I would like to get back to at some point because I like minis and I work in 3D, so it really speaks to me that way. But it was just at the time, you know, it was a little bit financially difficult to get into, and then just like the number system of it was a lot at the time. So we kind of just messed around with it a little bit, and then I played a bunch of Magic the Gathering. I played Magic the Gathering like probably 2 or 3 different like blocks of like a year or two here or a year or two there. So that all kind of started back in junior high and high school, and then I really didn't do a lot for a long time because I think that probably the first like newer game that was like a game you would just get a bunch of people around and play was probably like Apples to Apples or something.
Yep, college.
Yeah,
that's about when that came out.
That's kind of, I've been slowly worked in. You're much more prolific board gamer than I am, so you know.
Prolific's a strong word. So I wouldn't consider it tabletop. I mean, I guess we can, but Magic the Gathering is where I got my start in that. Well, you know what? Let's go back. Let's go back to the ages of elementary school, middle school. So Monopoly, we would take out knives and spoons and, you know, go to battle against one another after, you know, mortgaging properties and, you know, stealing each other's cash flow. So that's really where my tabletop experience came through, you know, pissing each other off and the adventures of 8-hour campaigns of Monopoly and sometimes a week, depending how long you want to play.
Oh my gosh.
So
too much Monopoly.
Yeah, too much Monopoly. Flash forward, or fast forward, really, not flash forward. Could be flash forward. College. Basically got into a lot of Magic the Gathering. I've got a ridiculous collection of cards that my wife just wants me to get rid of, I'm sure. They take up a lot of space.
They do.
And yeah, they do. I think it's like 30 or 40,000 cards I have.
Wow, you've got way more than I do.
Well, if you have Magic cards, bring them my way. So I've yeah, she's in here with us as we're recording and shaking her head during that whole process. So I played a lot of Magic the Gathering in college and kind of into when we moved out here to Arizona. I did some tournaments and such at some of the local shops. I've primarily focused on Legacy, though, because I hated having to keep up with the standard blocks and the extended blocks and all that type of stuff. When I started, it was pretty much just, you know, Legacy, Standard, and I think it was Extended Edition is what they had at the time. And Extended was like 8th edition on up, I believe, for it. And then you had like Legacy was everything outside
goes.
of like Power of 9 and some like the crazy cards, which are vintage. So I did a lot of tournaments when I was in where I was living previously.
Do you have a Black Lotus, John?
No, dude. If I had a Black Lotus, I don't have a Black Lotus. If I had one, I'd probably use it, like sell it to pick up all the decks I want to use. So no, I don't. I have played against them, though. So my first experience in like a tournament setting, we went to this like convention, and it was a 24-hour convention. It started at like 6 a.m. on one day, and it ended at 6 a.m. the next day. And I actually met, coincidentally, with this discussion, Louis Zocchi, who actually made the Zakihedron, the 100-sided dice, and he's a guy out in Kentucky. He's a former, I think he's a former general or not general, former sergeant, I believe, in the military, a veteran, and he has a dice shop, and he makes all the game science dice. So I actually learned about dice from him when I was out at this convention. He had a booth and everything. He gave me my first ever D20 came from Lewis, and the sharp-sided dice that I use, like that's how much it stuck with me. Like learning about his dice, and he was actually one of the first manufacturers for D&D dice. He knew all the D&D guys when they first got it started.
Oh, wow.
Like he was in that circle, like that's who he chatted with, and he told us a lot about that. And so imagine getting there at 6 a.m. for this convention, and you're hearing Louis Zaki speak at 6 a.m. in the morning the next day, and just like half asleep, like trying to listen to this guy speak about D&D. It was actually pretty exciting for somebody that had not been involved, and it wouldn't be till 15 years later that I actually jumped into it. But yeah, so the Black Lotus story, to go back to it, there was a little tournament that was occurring at that event, and this guy just it wasn't like any particular format. It's just like, oh, we're playing, D&D. The guy busts out 4 Black Lotuses.
Not D&D.
Or not D&D, sorry, MTG. Jesus, man. Too many acronyms. So yeah, he busts out 4 Black Lotuses on me just to show me like, hey, I've got 4 Black Lotuses.
Wow.
And this was before it was in like the thousands and thousands of dollars range. And they were definitely like, I think it was alpha Black Lotuses. So they're pretty pricey now.
Yeah.
That guy, he got his hands on some good stuff back then. When I was first playing D&D, or not D&D, Jesus, Magic the Gathering. When I was first playing, I could get my hands on like some of the dual land cards were like in the $100 or so, sometimes 90. Now they're like 400 and 500 for the same ones. In fact, I had my hands on some of them, but I had flipped them at that point in time. I'm wishing I didn't.
You were too entrepreneurial too early, John.
Oh my god! Well, I picked up a lot
From
of cards.
From now on, all this stuff you pick up, you need to wait 10 years to sell any of it.
No, that's not happening, dude. No, that's definitely not happening. There's far too much. There's no way that won't happen. But yeah, that was my first experience of Magic the Gathering.
Or no, you're only allowed to sell stuff that's over 10 years old. We'll say that.
That's like almost my whole collection. Well, yeah, I guess that could work. So that was my first experience, like a big tournament experience, and that Magic the Gathering just kind of carried me on all the way up until really now. I'll still play it, and I still love it. And from a video game...
I should make a deck, and you should make a deck.
I've got pre-made decks. Dude, I have like 20 pre-made decks.
No, but I could go home and use my Magic cards to make a deck.
Oh, we should. Oh, we totally should. You would get owned, but we totally should.
Well, I totally would get owned because I've never played a turn. I was never really that good. I'll say that much. I was never really that good.
I've got like turn 1 and 2 decks where it's just like...
I made somebody throw a chair once because I beat them so bad.
That's successful. That means you were pretty decent. Yeah, that's actually not bad. Yeah, I make really gimmicky decks that win in like turn 1 and turn 2. I enjoy them. So I guess we can get past the card game component, but I did play a lot of games years ago that were kind of D&D related or D&D. So Neverwinter Nights, I played that on the PC.
Oh, video games,
yeah. So I played
video game adaptations of D&D. Was that was that like your first exposure to D&D?
That really was, but the thing is I was so young. I think it was like 10 years old when Neverwinter Nights came out. Mm-hmm. So I was playing some Icewind Dale back then, so I'd picked that up, and it was cool, but I was so young, I didn't really grasp the idea of like 3.5 D&D and really all the mechanics and the AC and all that. I had no idea what I was doing.
You just played it more like a game than a tabletop adaptation.
Exactly. I jumped into it thinking, wow, this is really cool. And then you get like certain things done and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing here. This isn't very fun. And then you just like stop. And Neverwinter Nights was very similar like that for me. I was a little older when it happened. My buddy Justin was with me. So we would actually play that one together, and he got pretty far in it. But I think he did a lot more studying up on the game. I really didn't. And it got to a point where I wasn't like super engaged with it. I was just like, all right, cool. Like it's a cool looking game.
I feel like there was probably a lot of kids who tried to get into D&D, and like, if you could get past that threshold of it being like a really crunchy pen and paper game adapted into a video game instead of just being a fun video game.
That's what it was.
Yeah, that probably made or break. I guess it would be make or break a lot of young people trying to get into it.
Yeah, and it truly did break me on that. It wasn't something I wanted to get involved in at that point. And even so, I kick myself so badly on this. I picked up at a flea market all version 1 D&D books, like just a ton of them. Monster manuals, the original like player's handbook, a bunch of like nickel minifigures, like metal
I think you
minifigures.
told me this before.
I think I did. And it was just like a ton of them, like original notes, like all these really cool things. And I think I did flip it. Like I got that and a bunch of Magic the Gathering cards. So a guy was like, here, take all this D&D stuff off my hands and you can have all these Magic cards too for like $20. I was like, all right, so I could sell all this D&D stuff for like 30 and be okay. So I did that, and now when I look back at it, I'm just super
Kick
pissed.
yourself.
Yeah, it wasn't like the best of condition. I mean, a couple of them were held on with like duct tape on the binding and such.
But I mean, just for your own use, it would have been cool.
Well, the minis now, like I really wish I had those minis. Like those were really cool minis from like the 80s. And at the time, those weren't worth anything. D&D wasn't as popular as it is, now. And that was like 10, 12 years ago when that happened. So it's kind of gone to...
It's a whole different ball game now.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like, what was it? I think it was still like 4.0 or something back then, 10 years ago? 3.5,
I think
4.0?
it was probably still 3.5.
3.5. Yeah, so, I mean, it wasn't really as popular as it is today, and that was really kind of what happened there. So, yeah, that's my background, dude. That was a lot of background. I didn't realize how much I had invested in the whole D&D and how many times I crossed paths with it, but never actually like jumped into it. So, really, what's your overall experience now that you've been involved in it?
Well, so I got started at D&D like 3 or 4 years ago. I think it was 3 years ago. I was watching Pro Jared, and I think he started doing his D&D December, or he just showed off some D&D content prior to starting D&D December. I don't remember exactly. I tried to go back and look, and I got distracted. But that was kind of the first thing that made me be like, oh, D&D. And then after that, I just started watching tons and tons of stuff online. Like I probably watched like 3 months of YouTube videos before I ever even like downloaded a book to read or bought a starter set or any of that stuff. So I picked up Don Forgecast. He had tons and tons of stuff. I watched probably 100 hours of YouTube or something like crazy. I'm sure it's so much content out there, but he has really good starting guides and stuff. So if anybody out there is interested in D&D, I would point you that way. I haven't watched this stuff in a while just because I kind of grew beyond needing that extra entry level, but most of the people you watch out there, like anybody who knows D&D probably knows about Critical Role now. Critical Role's huge. Matt Colville and MCDM, they're really gaining a lot of traction. I mean, there's tons of podcasts out there and loads of streamers and stuff. I know that there's so many groups out there doing stuff, and I think that it's such a boon when you start to really be involved in, watching people play and watching people who have like guides or, ideas on different methods of playing the game. I think that watching all that stuff really can push you forward, because D&D can be a hard thing to learn and a hard thing to like really get into sometimes, like to really be like good at D&D, I guess, like in the way that you might idolize some of the people who play online that are really good, quote unquote.
Even so, like a lot of those people that play on Critical Role, they still ask questions about like certain things.
Well, no, not even talking about that. I'm just saying like people that have played for a long time and have really good knowledge of the game that makes the game flow well, you can cheat years of experience by watching that type of content online. And that's kind of what I did. I watched so much content before I even got started that I felt like I had a leg up on the rules going into it. So it felt easy and natural for me to pick it up and get the starter set and get my best friends together and be like, come on guys, we're going to play some D&D. And we've been playing for basically like 3 years now. That's how I kind of got into D&D, just through YouTube, through other content creators that I liked. I really could kick myself. Like, I wish we had gotten all into this in high school, because we were all friends and hanging out all the time then too, and we would have had so much more time.
Well, what about like post that? So what's kind of happened since you started? I mean, you've been playing for like 3 years, right? So
Yeah, I've done I've done a bunch of different campaigns. Like, everybody thinks that, you know, you're going to go in and you're just going to run this one campaign forever, but it didn't really turn out that way. Like, I ran the starter set and then I started my own campaign and we had a ton of fun with it. We did like 17 sessions, I think, of that campaign, and everything was going great. And then we just kind of hit our first valley where it was like, you know, life happened and we finally had like a month where we couldn't play or something, and the campaign fell apart. And then it kind of became a series of that happening over and over again, but with me as a player. And I played, so I tried to write down all the characters that I could remember. I played human ranger monk, and I will never multi-class at before level 8 again, because those attribute boosts are too good. You need those attribute boosts, and it's not worth multi-classing until you've gotten to level 8 or 12, I think. And then I played 3.5 for one campaign, and that was totally different experience because I started with 5e, so 3.5 was like, oh my gosh, it's all different. There's so much more stuff in here, and I played a human rogue in that, and that was super fun because I was really able to take advantage of all the different skills and stuff, because in 3.5 rogues get tons of skill points, and especially if you build it smart, you can really get like a lot out of it. My first character I ever played was a tiefling paladin. The last character I played was a half-elf wizard. I tried to go on to Dawnforge Cast's YouTube channel today because I actually played in a 2-shot campaign that he ran. So I'm out there somewhere as a goblin fighter in a campaign. So if anybody finds that, that'd be cool. And then I played a human cleric once. So I'm trying to play every class at least once before I play another class again. But in, what was it, like, when did we start playing?
we started playing when I was in that house. So I was renting a few years ago. So I've been here for about a year. I was in that house for about 3
Brad wasn't back yet.
No, so we actually have been playing for about 4 years. So we started our campaign, our starter campaign, with my wife and Mel, and I think it was and really that was it, just the three of us. And we started that campaign about 4 years ago, and
was it 4 years ago?
Yeah,
so
man.
that means that I've been playing D&D for like
5 or 6.
Like, I can't believe it's been that long already.
Yeah, it's been about 4 years.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well that's super crazy.
Yeah, so we played that campaign together, and
I ran a campaign for John and a bunch of other friends for about like a year and a half or so, and that's the only campaign that I've ever run out of a book. I was running Out of the Abyss. I was running it very trudgingly, slowly and painfully, and it took forever, and they never leveled up or got any cool stuff. It was, I viewed it, I got out of the campaign because I started to feel like it wasn't going well, and there was nothing I could do to curb that around, and I just couldn't get excited about it anymore. And I think it was because of running it out of a book. I know that you just got like the new Eberron setting, but I just, after I guess playing for this long, I find that what I want to do, I just have way different ways than I want to do it than looking through the book, really.
Yeah, I mean, I can feel you on that. That campaign, I actually had a blast playing.
We had a lot of fun playing it.
We'll get into my experience on that when I guess I can start talking about my experience now. And
yeah.
we'll talk about that because that's good times. So the only reason I started D&D is because of you. So you kind of coaxed.
And then it was the worst thing.
It was the worst
decision. I regretted it so much.
Oh, he totally did. There are so many things that happened. My first character
John's one of those players that needs a lot of aside one-on-one time in a session because he's doing devious things.
we'll go into those devious things because now we can talk about it and the hilarity that ensued. So the first campaign was that starter campaign, and you TPK'd us, which was ridiculous. A straight out TPK, and like our first battle, like that was our taste. You're like, don't worry, it gets better than this. And we're like, you just killed us. Like, what do we do?
The first group of goblins.
Yeah, first group of no, it was a bugbear. Like we were going against this crazy bugbear who was just like critting us every damn turn. Yeah. So we totally weren't ready for this bugbear battle, and I was playing a tiefling paladin at the time at level 1 and going against a bugbear who easily should have been taking on level 2 players, I felt. So that was the first taste of it. And we moved on to, obviously, Out of the Abyss. We started doing that. And I played a character called Ornstein, who legend has it was able to manipulate a red dragon into burning down a city and killing hundreds of people, while Ornstein rode on his back, turned invisible, and ran out the city.
Spoilers for anybody who's playing in Out of the Abyss, or DMs that are going to run it and haven't gotten that far, but I guess you probably don't need a spoiler because you're going to get there anyways. The red dragon in
it was Gracklestog?
Gracklestog, yeah. With the Dwergar. Don't let a very charismatic character roll all kinds of nat 20s talking to a dragon and then getting it to serve him.
So that was fantastic. So we'll talk about that a little bit. So I got into an allegiance of a demon lord, who was the main demon lord of the campaign.
Zuctamoy,
yeah. And actually, I threw shade at our party because we had a Discord going on, and I had a little screenshot of Zuctamoy's head as my profile picture, and nobody knew what the hell it was. It was Zuctamoy the whole time. So I did that. And yeah, so leading into it, there were so many hilarious moments like within that campaign. Like I was playing an evil character. I think I was lawful evil at the time, and it wasn't until after completely burning down that city that I became chaotic evil, because it was just everything blowing up. Like there was no way that I was going to get past not being chaotic.
The place.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. So they didn't like me. I somehow was able to lie to the head military of that city, saying that I was there for them. Lied to another group of individuals that we were trying to protect them. Meanwhile, I was just like screwing with them. Like we went into that like ravine and it was like the poor area of that, and I like made like I pretty much, my character's humor was taking like a piece of food and tossing it in the middle to see them all attack one another when nobody else in our party was looking. So I was rolling
Darrow down in the Darrow Warrens.
So I'm rolling like sleight of hands to try and cause chaos. And like nobody, like my character was a badass. He was doing like some crazy cool stuff, but nobody was like catching on it early. Everybody knew that there was something wrong with my character, but didn't truly know until they abandoned me. And well, it wasn't even then. Like I escaped in the middle of the night, found this red dragon, talked to him, said that they were planning on killing him. The city was planning on killing him and replacing him with a new dragon. He gets super pissed, and I somehow was able to not only manipulate the dragon, but also infect the dragon with a spore that would have eventually put him under the control of a demon lord. So I don't think anybody else knew about that until like right now. So did that, went back to the party. We obviously went through that whole set of tunnels and everything. I didn't escape. I ran off pissed off because I couldn't hatch the damn dragon I was trying to hatch. And then, which would have been cool, I would have actually given that to a party member. And made my way back. I was caught, put in prison, and my party was like, screw this guy, we're going to leave him. And I was, of course, able to not only get my way out of prison by turning little with a mushroom, and then taking the form of a priest, escaping, making my way back to the dragon, and then manipulating him to destroy everyone for me, and then somehow was able to manipulate him into letting me ride on his back. Like it was
a series of rolls
Ryan
that were undeniable.
Ryan
like there was
so
literally
excited.
nothing I could do to stop him.
And the best part about it is you were so excited when you're like, I gotta look up stats for a dragon. Like I have to do this. And you're like, there's so many dice. Like You were definitely stoked to play a red dragon.
I laid waste to that city with that dragon. Everything was on fire.
It was a fantastic 40-minute session of pure destruction.
It was a really intense one-on-one cool moment that nobody else in the campaign was privy to, and that part I kind of regret not doing it more performance in front of everybody.
But they wouldn't have known.
But yeah,
they would have known.
They already left the city.
Yeah, and then there's also, yeah, exactly. So they had left the city, and there's also my escape. So I went invisible and then made my way to a boat to get onto the Black Lake. And you had told me that if I would have gone north on the Black Lake, I would have died. My character would have been dead. But I played the safe route.
He hugged the shore and he found a tunnel.
Hugged the shore, found a tunnel, found a couple of our, characters or party members that run off earlier in the campaign and made my way back to safety. But the most hilarious part about that whole experience was the reveal of how it even happened. Because you had those Dwagar come in on spiders, and they were just like, you have to come back in, you're being put in prison and for destruction. They're like, what did we do? What happened? And I'm just kind of sitting in the corner because I'm not part of the campaign at that point in time. There was a good 2 or 3 weeks where I wasn't playing, and they're like, everybody burned, the whole city was destroyed. And at that moment, everyone just kind of stopped and looked in my general direction, and I couldn't help but laugh. It was quite an experience. So as my wife shakes her head looking at me right now, it was seriously my greatest D&D moment of all time. It was awesome.
It was a good moment.
I thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Now, though, outside of playing awesome ears who are fallen and chaotic evil and making pacts with demon lords, I'm actually playing a chaotic neutral. I'm playing a chaotic neutral monk, a drunken master in Neverwinter, 325 years old, and he likes to poop on everything. So I've got that going for me, mainly because he drinks so much, kind of loose going on, there. So I kind of have to play to that character. And it's been a lot of fun, dude. Monks are super OP. Straight up the most OP characters I've ever played.
Monk's really cool.
Yeah. So I'm playing that. I'm amassing as much. You can't use this in the campaign, just so you know. You can't use anything I say here. I am amassing. Yeah, I am amassing as much gold as possible to be a drunken master Scrooge McDuck.
Oh my gosh.
I am trying to collect as much money as possible. So I actually am I'm part of this God, man, it's so funny. So I look like a hobo. My character, who smells like crap. He recently shaved his head and got some new robes, but he looks like a bum. Everywhere he goes, they're like, oh, get out of here, you're trash. And he's like, I'll take a meal for 5 gold. And they're like, what? Just my character is taking that kind of approach. He looks disgusting and repulsive, just repulsive in every single situation he's in. Always is dirty, doesn't wipe himself. Well, if you want to be
Scrooge McDuck, dude, you got to get a hat and you got to lose the pants.
I will at some point. Well, I can lose the pants easily. That's my character as well. So yeah, and I've tried flirting with people, but I always have to roll at disadvantage because I smell so bad. But yeah, I have amassed, I think so far, probably 8,000 or 9,000 gold. So it's not a lot, but I'm getting there. And there's tons of missions that I'm taking as a Zentarum because I somehow got into that. Recently killed a dog killer, got 2,000 gold off that. So I'm taking pretty much the way my character's working this campaign is any mission that comes up, oh, well, we need you to kill this person. Well, why do I need to kill this person? What's he done? Okay, yeah, that's pretty bad. So it justifies me killing him. So it's not really I'm going out to kill just to kill. It's more of my character sees that kill as a sense of, it's necessary.
Yeah.
To kind of stay in that neutral standpoint.
Yeah.
So I'm not doing any needless killing. If I need to steal something, there was one mission where the lady paid for something and it was stolen from her, so I would have to steal it back, and anything else I found I could get.
What's your kind of overall main kind of mission? What are you guys doing in the campaign?
So right now the main campaign, it's kind of been a guild situation. So we just went to where are the elf people that are gray and they
the Shadowfell.
The Shadowfell, yeah. So we went
Shadowkai.
Yeah, to Shadowkai, which I played one of those in Out of the Abyss after Ornstein died. So for a little bit. So we went to the Shadowfell for a mission to stop some zombies, which is where I got a majority of my gold. As the place was collapsing, we went into this old temple for, I think it was Shar. We went to this temple, and I rolled a nat 20 on my find, or on my investigation, and the way it was described to me was this drunken master running out of like this collapsing building, carrying a huge sack with coins flying out of it, and like just this massive sack of items, and everybody's just kind of like running as well, like looking at him, and I was rolling like 16s and 17s.
You're like Nate Drake if it showed the bag of all the trinkets you picked up throughout the game.
It was ridiculous, man. It was crazy. I picked up so many items, and it ended up being about 3,000 or 4,000 gold worth of everything, including platinum.
Nice.
So that was kind of the bulk of that mission. We've gone into, one of our party members is a half elf, I believe, or no, a halfling, and we went into her like hometown. And the way it's worked out is there's been like this big party that's going on, or this big festival. So we went there, and it turns out that there's stuff going amok, and we're trying to figure out like why there's monsters coming into town and everything else. And like things feel really off right now. So there's something going on there. And really it's been like that guild effect, right? Like there's a mission here. We got to go figure that out. Okay, there's a mission here. The overall campaign, I feel, it's more of that. You know, helping out the city of Neverwinter, kind of in a sense of like Neverwinter Nights. You know, you got the plague, you're trying to help out the plague. Okay, well, now the plague has been cured, but like there's this cult, so you got to go stop this cult. Like it's leading into those directions in a sense. So that's cool. And the last character I played experience-wise was a necrophiliac orc rogue that we played. Were you part of that campaign?
No.
We played so we played a campaign. It was supposed to be a one-shot, ended up taking about 4 sessions, and there was this dragon that held this tournament, and pretty much like you would get X amount of gold if you outlasted all of his like levels of tricks and such. So I played a character named Grodnads the Anus Destroyer, and Grodnads was a necrophiliac. So anytime there was a kill, well, he had his way. And so Grodnads also had a magic broom. And so we went through, and Grodnads at that point in time got on his magic broom. And the final part of that one shot was we had to battle a dragon. And he was riding a dragon, like holding on for dear life. And his magic broom was broken. So like at any point, Grodnads was dying. So I was like balancing on his dragon and like surfing on it, and it was ridiculous how that all played out.
You've ridden 2 dragons.
I have ridden 2 dragons, and not many people can say they've ridden dragons in campaigns.
I mean, I'm sure some can. Probably for better reasons than you have.
Probably, yeah. Manipulated one, and one of them I fell on it with a magic broom.
Hey, still commendable.
Still, yeah, for sure. So, yeah, that's where we're at. What's next? Currently playing?
Yeah, so I've been running a 5e campaign for my other group now for, gosh, I don't know, probably like 6 or 7 months, I think. And it's going pretty good. It's an interesting campaign. It's not at all like I thought it was going to be because, you know, players do crazy stuff. I learned that a lot from you. So
you're welcome.
In the beginning of this campaign, my players all got together and they found themselves kind of following prophecy and following...
Are you going to tell the mummy story?
No.
Oh, please tell that mummy story. Come on.
Well, I'll try to get there.
Okay.
So they were able to kill kind of like a demigod. Like this was definitely like a Herculean task, but they didn't really do it. They were responsible for him being killed, but they didn't like kill him because they wouldn't have been able to. So my characters are dealing with like a lot of undue glory in their campaign. Like they've been very rewarded and very doted upon, and they've proven themselves capable of taking on anything that I've thrown at them so far, which really isn't a lot. It hasn't been a very combat heavy campaign, and I think it's going to start ramping up more, and I need to throw more challenging things, but they've really handily taken care of anything. John wants me to talk about this mummy they killed last week.
No, dude, you got to tell it. It's awesome.
So they went down into this mummy's tomb, and you know, the standard like kind of upright entombment against the wall. You slide the big heavy slab out of the way. There's a mummy inside. As soon as they got in and they found the first one, they just pushed that thing to the side. They were like, oh, it's a dude. And they took his sword and then just kind of went off. They triggered the trap that brought him and his friends to life. But he was the strongest one of the three of them, already down his sword. So they took care of, combat 1. They've used some spells up. Good. Combat number 2. They go down to the next room. They're like, there's 2 more of those things on the walls. This time in the corners. A higher DC check because you can't get your hands around it very good to slide it out of the way. Natural 20. Move that out of the way. Behead those ones before they even have a chance to come to life. They finally go down into the basement where the big bad mummy is. And I wanted to give them my favorite magic item. My favorite magic item to give out to players is the immovable rod, because you can do all kinds of really cool stuff with it. And I just think it's a pretty cool item to get at any level, and you can make tons of use of it throughout the campaign. So I had an immovable rod on top of this mummy's lid to keep him inside the sarcophagus, because he was an old bad mummy and he was meant to stay buried. And they just let the lid come up a tiny bit and dropped a bead of fireball inside and blew his ass up. My mummy lord survived the explosion, but like a round or 2 later was completely killed because fire damage.
That is awesome.
Yeah, it was, I gave them the bead of fireball and I just couldn't see any reason why that wouldn't work. So you got to let the players have it. It's fun to just throw out a challenge and let them figure a way around it. Not really have to have I don't know. They'll pull it off somehow. It kind of works well that way. And I've kind of adopted some of that from watching Matt Colville's content.
So we actually, in the campaign we're playing right now, actually went ahead and took, and I'll let you get back because I know you wanted to discuss that wedding situation.
Oh.
But we were in a forest and we were setting up for I think, was it orcs, or I forget the type of enemy we were facing, gremlins or some, I don't remember. It was some sort of enemy. And we pretty much set it up to where we had a fire in the middle, which was burning flesh from corpses that were attacked earlier in the week. We went ahead and set up, those pieces of wood with spikes, and you kind of set them as a gate.
Yeah.
We set up several of those, and then we went ahead and laid out, we hid in the bushes, but we laid out layers of ice throughout the whole thing. Leading up to the fire.
Lots of difficult terrain.
Yeah, so basically you had these enemies blasting through running, and it was right when they hit the ice, they had to go ahead and roll athletics checks and failed all of them. So they're all being knocked prone and we're just destroying them. What was supposed to be a pretty difficult battle, we handled without taking a single hit in maybe 3 or 4 attempts. And it was really because of the preparation and thinking of what's going to happen here and what can we do as players to make this work correctly. We've of course run into several battles where we've almost all died, such as our dire troll battle the other day, but we've made it work. So it's good to see that they went ahead and had that bead of fire and just said, well, there's a little crack here, so let's kind of just pop that in there.
Yeah, I love to give my players little things here and there that's it's not a whole necklace of fireballs, but it's at least one bead of fireball. That'll be useful at some point in time.
Oh, you know what? I'll talk about mine after you finish yours. I've got a story on there that I can tell about the current campaign that just drives me up a wall every time.
Well, why don't you go ahead and tell that story, and then we'll end it off with what happened in our last sessions and what we think we're getting to next.
Okay. I got lots of stories. So this one is the Neverwinter one, and it was in the very beginning. I think we were level 2 at this point in time. And our DM gave my wife...
You're a monk still, right?
I'm a monk still, yeah. So my DM gave my wife a magic wand. Wrong decision. Should have never given her a magic wand.
She's a huge Harry Potter fan. This was a mistake.
And she rides a giraffe in the campaign. She has a giraffe with a magic saddle that makes him little, so she as a halfling can run around on a giraffe. So she's got a giraffe, and she's in plate armor, and it's the most ridiculous thing. She's always failing on her stealth checks. So she's always making noise.
She's a sight to see.
Oh yeah, it's hilarious how it all works out. She's this little tiny cleric that's just a war cleric, I think, and she's busting out. What's the ability where you just have light surrounding you for 10 feet and everybody gets attacked on their turn? The ones you designate. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, I don't know.
Okay, well, regardless, it's radiant damage. and you pretty much like are surrounded by and like on their turn to get attacked.
Yeah.
I forget the name of it. But she has little unicorns that are her like sprites that come up. Her magic weapon is the magic weapon that she uses when she summons it. You know the hobby horses that have like a stick in the head? Yeah, it's one of those, but with a unicorn head.
There you go.
Like there
you go.
Yeah, and so she's
that's
like
some great character design.
Yeah,
do you have a picture of this?
Yeah,
I gotta see a picture of this.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So I've got my character, but hers is like ridiculous what she's got going on with her character.
And your two characters are seen in public together.
Oh yeah, all the time. It's hilarious. And we always question like, why are these people together?
The circus has come to town.
So funny enough though, we end up going into this tunnel or a sewer really, and we found a Rat King who was, basically destroying things in the city and stealing. And we had this magic crafter, like she turned items into magic items, said, hey, I need you to go down there. They stole a bunch of my stuff that helps me make my items. It's worth a lot of gold. I'll pay you X amount. Can you go ahead and help me retrieve it? So we get down to the Rat King, and, me being a monk, I'm like, all right, I'm just going, full on in, beat the crap out of this Rat King because I can. And she randomly is just like, I'm going to use my magic wand now. I'm going to use it on the Rat King. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what's happening? She rolls Fireball. Literally blows me up and throws me into a wall halfway across, and I'm knocked out for the rest of the match. It was the most ridiculous. And I'm like sitting there doing like death saving throws, and she's just having a blast with her magic wand. Completely annihilates the Rat King, mind you. Like, he's dead at this point. And
those
I'm
fireballs, watch out for those.
Yeah, so he was like, your character obviously coughs up smoke, and he's like singed everywhere. It was absolutely ridiculous. So we had that, and funny enough though, it bit her in the ass because she got bit by a were-rat, and so just recently she turned into a were-rat and bit her dad in the campaign.
Oh no!
So her
Papa were-rat.
And then on top of that, one of her best childhood friends happened to be an old cleric, and he just died saving her in the process. So you didn't get that in the campaign when Joel said that he fell down and like the life had left him. Like, to cure you, he sacrificed himself. At least that's what I interpreted. Leo. Yeah, we'll have to see. I have a feeling he sacrificed himself.
It sounds like a very important difference.
Yeah, we'll have to
see. It's literally life or death, John.
Yeah, it is life or death. So he hasn't gone into, like, we ended it right there. Like, her dad was in pain and had to roll a constitution check, so we don't know what happened on that. But I poured my 200 proof alcohol out of my endless flask on his wound.
Ooh.
Yeah, well, I mean,
did it sizzle?
Well, I don't know what happened.
Like pop?
I was hoping it might have worked. He said he was in extreme pain after that.
I bet.
But basically, that's where we've been.
Wow, that's a pretty heavy ending.
It is so far. Like, we got to wait until, I think it's Friday. Yeah, we got to wait until Friday to see what happens after that whole situation. We went against Street Sharks.
What do you think's going to happen next?
Well, I think we're going to come together to figure out what's happening right now, because her character's god is Maliki. So we're trying to figure out like why she can't pray to Maliki or why she can't connect. So there's something going on in their village. So we got to find the source of that. We'll likely go into the woods, I would imagine. Something's going to be coming up with that. Also, I didn't mention this, but just before all that had occurred, we had during their festival, there was a fighting tournament. And it was absolutely horrible. So I went against a raging barbarian in my first fight. Wife goes against, I think it was like a little monk halfling. And our other friend, Jenny, went against somebody else. And it was just like they were just matching like 2 points of damage to 2 points of damage or not hitting each other. Like the matches took forever. My wife actually got caught using an illegal move, which would have been inflict wounds, I think. So she got disqualified. I, of course, almost got destroyed by a raging barbarian, but when I went against the little halfling with a 12 DC, I beat the living hell out of her and completely just like no damage, completely took out this halfling, bloodied up, and I was just consistently rolling like 21s and 22s and hitting it with, my 2 attacks and then nailing an unarmed strike. It was ridiculous, but it's been fun so far.
I mean, a monk in a brawl, that's what you want to be.
For sure, dude. So, monk in a brawl. I think with my 18 AC right now, I think we're level 7. It's been pretty sick so far.
Nice.
So, I'm enjoying it. Your wedding, though. You've been clamoring to me about talking about this wedding.
Yeah, I was waiting to do the recording for this episode until after I had a chance to. I ran a wedding. which was interesting. It's not something I thought I would have done.
Was it a red wedding?
No, it was not. It's a drinking wedding.
Oh.
Yeah, in my campaign, I have this organization, the 508, and it's a drinking club where there's 508 members. Most of the members just have like a little chip, and they're all over the world, and you can use that chip at any bar to get a free drink. But if you use it, anybody can challenge you to a drinking contest, and if they beat you, they get your membership. So the top 52 are a deck of cards instead of being chips because they need some sort of prominence to set them apart. So I went through and I made a list of who all these different members are because one of my players is the 3 of clubs. So they've been summoned to the capital for the Jack of Diamonds wedding. And it was really fun. It was a really interesting way to run a session because it's like a big grandiose party. You know, I got some orchestral music to play in the background, but I had basic descriptions of everybody, and a few characters were, you know, had more importance. But the fun thing was just having them like, okay, draw 5 cards. That's who you're sitting with. And they drew like the perfect cards. One of my players is a big barbarian from the north, like classic Viking, right? And he misses his old love, Helga, from the village and her wide shoulders. And
that's very descriptive of you.
Sure enough, they drew the King of Clubs. So the same suit that he's in, and the King of Clubs is a big burly Goliath woman with a big brown bear animal companion. And one of my other players is a druid warforged who transforms into animals because it's the only time he can have qualia. And so his default is turning into a bear and begging people for food because he can actually eat when he's in bear mode instead of being in robot mode. So like they drew that, bam, perfect. And then he got into it with the most prominent member of the 508. The aces aren't there. Some say the aces don't even drink anymore, so they don't lose their card. But his drinking contest is going to be against the full house, a tiefling monk who is the only person who has 5 cards. She has 3 8s, 2 7s. So they got into it with her a little bit earlier in, I guess during the reception. They were at the reception, they were eating, and everybody's heard, oh, the glass guard. That's my players. That's what they call themselves after they defeated this like titan that they slew. And so they came over and they kind of minced words with her a little bit and kind of gave her some flack. And sure enough, all right, go ahead and draw from the deck to see who you're going to face in this drinking contest. And he drew her. And so it was a fun, different way. Like, I think that integrating other types of stuff besides just dice can be fun. I've heard of other games that have like cards and stuff in them. So that was like a fun extra thing to throw in. It was a really interesting way that they pulled all the stuff that I wanted them to interact with the most. The ones that I had spent the most time working on were the ones that they actually wound up engaging just through random chance. So we had to end a little bit early. So we're going to start off with the drinking contest next time. And I know my players won't hear this because they won't listen, because they know that they shouldn't be, because I'm going to say that
we can have them listen to the episode afterwards.
Well, it was funny when you said your god is Meliki. That's the god of the Jack of Diamonds. He is a paladin who has had visions from his god that kind of led him here to eventually meet them to move on with the next arc of the campaign.
So it's funny you mentioned a drinking contest because one of the items I picked up in that temple that fell down was a magic tankard. So now I go into drinking contest with the ability to obviously drink and not have the effects of alcohol. And I've recently learned of my god Lapjord, who is the god of the drink in D&D. So some good times in Dungeons and Dragons. I do have to say before we end this episode, though. So what are your thoughts on this? If my monk dies, my next character is going to be a chaotic good, raging barbarian gnome who carries a battle axe, and pretty much anytime anybody says anything mean, gets angry. Like, says anything mean. Like, it could just be like, you're stupid. Rages because they're just that, like, good. Like, that's kind of the route I'm going right now. And they're going to follow, like, some sort of... I got to figure out the god they'll follow. But that's the route I'm going on this particular character. If my monk dies anytime soon, or that'll just be the next character I play in the campaign.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see what happens next time on D&D. So, all right. Well, hopefully listeners liked this episode. Very different from what we've done in the past.
Yeah, we're just trying to throw out a little bit of different content and see what bites.
Yeah, but if you want to check out our old content... go on Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, really anywhere you can find a podcast. We're on there. If we're not, let us know we're not, and we'll be on there. Social media, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. On Twitter,
tell us about some of your D&D experiences. Tell us what character you're playing.
On Twitter, of course, let us know as at Game Deflators, because they don't like the. And Instagram and Facebook, we are at the Game Deflators. So check us out. Find our podcast, find our backlog. If you like what you hear, give us 5 stars. If you don't like what you hear, don't give us any stars.
No, still give us 5 stars.
No, we'll still give us 5 stars, but don't. If you're not going to give us 5 stars, then don't bother giving us any stars at all.
Give us 5 stars and then tell us you don't like us.
That
if you don't
works,
like
too.
us, but you have to do the first part first.
The first part first, yeah. There's one of the two. You either leave no review or you leave 5 stars and don't like us. That's how it goes.
There we go.
I like it. Okay, well, this has been episode 67 of the Game Deflators Podcast. My name is John.
I'm Ryan.
And thanks for listening.